What's up everybody, this is Kyle, SFL240SX on Instagram. I've been hosting SChassis and Skyline meets in South Florida for almost 20 years now. Welcome to my channel. Back in 2009 I started my YouTube channel. I uploaded 2 videos. I had participated in a standing mile event and I hadn't really done much with the channel ever since then. So I figured a couple years back that I'd start making some new content, and this is going to be my first video back explaining those first 2 videos. So back in 2009 there was a company called Mile Marker 1. And what they wanted to do was a standing mile event in South Florida. Now, some of you might have heard of the Texas Mile, which is very popular, but this was going to be South Florida's attempt at this. So what Mile Marker 1 did was rent out an airport runway. They had a limited number of participants. I believe it was kept around 100 cars. That way everybody would get a few runs in. For those of you that don't know how standing miles work, if you've done the quarter mile before, imagine that just you get the full mile, but instead of the times, the mile per hour is really what you're going after. So you start from a dig and you will just go full out, red line, all the way through the gears. And when you cross, there's somebody there with a radar gun clocking your top speed. So I had done the quarter mile a bunch of times before with the car, but I've always wanted to max out the car and see what its full potential was. For this particular run, I had luckily just been sponsored by BF Goodrich tires. So I had a fresh set of KDW2s, which were Y rated for that top speed and comfort. I was also on my first KA setup back in 2007. I had boosted the car on stock internals. This was a ball bearing Precision SC50, which would be a T3 T04E with a 63 AR. The motor made about 340 horsepower with 302 torque. So there was a lot of different cars in attendance for this. There was some Ferraris, some Corvettes, some Vipers, Ford GT, Carrera GT, some Supras, and even the new R35, which had just come out. The standing mile is going to be a lot of stress on your car. You're basically full out for almost a minute, full boost. You know, you're shifting at red line. You're probably even going to red line 5th gear by the time you cross the line. So you got to be ready for anything that can happen. When it was my turn to do the run, I wanted to do it solo just in case anything happened. I wanted to test the car out, make sure that it could handle full speed. I wasn't was going to have any vibrations or shakes or aero issues, and the first run just needed to be a tester run so I could make sure everything was going to be okay. I figured if the motor blew, at least let it blow doing something fun, something memorable, and let it be when I'm by myself. One of the videos on my YouTube channel is actually me leaving the starting line, and the second one is actually in-car footage. I treated my first run like it was going to be a quarter mile. I drove the car, shifted at red line every time, full boost. I was in 5th gear for about 30 seconds, which is something I had never really got to do at full throttle. I crossed the line at red line. The speedometer stopped at 120, so I really didn't know what speed I was at, but they told me I was clocked at 161 miles per hour. The car felt real smooth. There was no vibrations or anything like that, so I was real happy with that. I coasted the car. When the speedometer came down to where it was reading about 100, that's when I applied the brakes. You really shouldn't apply the brakes at anything over 100 miles an hour. You might have a loss of control. Once my white knuckles were able to release the steering wheel, I pulled back into line for a second run. Since the car felt safe after the first run, I decided I could bring along a passenger for some in-car footage. I asked my then girlfriend if she could come along and record. Unfortunately, GoPros were not as common as they were today. iPhones weren't doing video, so I asked her to film using a digital camera that she'd have to hold. I gave a brief instruction to film through the windshield, every now and then glancing over to the gauges, get some mile per hour and RPM. We got to the starting line, we had our helmets on, it was scorching South Florida heat, and something happened. The track official walked up to the window and explained it would be a few minutes before we got to do our run. Apparently the MK3 Supra that had just gone before us had caught on fire, and we needed to wait for them to clear him off the runway. When all was clear, it was our time to go. We quickly realized my girlfriend had never been in the car with me for a racing scenario, shifting at redline. This will explain the shaky footage during the first few gears as she tried to hold the camera steady in her hands. The second run went just as smooth as the first, but after completing it, I decided to stop taking my chances and not do a third run. The stock internal KA had proved itself to be rock solid and maintained the status for years to come. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. For daily content, follow me on Instagram at SFL240SX. I'll see you in the next video.